Hello, another episode of Refute This coming at you fast and furious because we have a time limit on this one. So it's self-imposed. That's what we're gonna say. Okay, so the argument for this one is around the Philadelphia Fusion, and I'm going to argue that they have the most potential out of any of the teams in OWL, for whatever the definition it may be for most potential. So Yiska's going to try and refute this, despite the fact that they absolutely bodied his favorite team, the London Spitfire, in the playoffs.
The famous 3-2 body.
The absolute 3-2 destruction that was required. Yeah. Okay, so my basic premise is this. Philadelphia Fusion, much like their namesake of the atom that when you look at it, it just looks ordinary, but when you crack it open, it has incredible explosive potential. Philadelphia Fusion, out of all of the teams in OWL, we've previously only seen them, up until the playoffs, we previously only see them play really one style, which was like a really hard commit dive style, and they have such incredible individual talent, and to some sense, like a really good understanding of how that particular style works, to the point where they were able to compete at the upper half at the very least, and I believe, where did they finish in stage one? I think it was like top 5, right? And that is without any refinement in terms of strategy or diversification of the play styles that they can actually play. And when we saw them go into the playoffs, I think that my biggest takeaway from this was that if you correctly utilize the pieces that you have within the Philadelphia Fusion, you get Carpe and Snolo playing together on the right maps, you have a game plan going into that, you have Carpe and EQO playing on certain maps, and maybe later on we'll see Shadowburn come in when his style is favored on certain points. They might, I think, on the recent Oversight episode, BZ was saying they might play him on some assault maps if they want somebody who can go for mega clutch plays or something like that to work against the spawn advantage. But if they're able to properly utilize the pieces, this will be the team with the most potential who can, in fact, become the best team in the Overwatch League. And that's a stretch to say that they could get there because NYXL look so incredible at the moment. But the fact that in the finals they were actually able to almost make it, and NYXL were forced to reverse sweep, means that there is some glimmer of that potential already that we're seeing. But the thing is, the actual individual skill is the biggest component, because if you're able to harness individual skill and create a strategic teamwork kind of system like the NYXL has, they are going to blow teams out the fucking water, because these guys pound when they are playing at 100%.
So your actual argument is that on a pound for pound basis, the Fusion has more potential than an NYXL or a London, or indeed even a Seoul.
I would say on a pound for pound basis, in fact, like if you compare them like 1-to-1, they at least match these teams, and in some cases, I would argue they overtake them. But the crucial element is that we have seen like a good base level from them with only one playstyle, and as soon as they were able to mix it up, they were easily going toe-to-toe with the best teams. I think that we've only scratched the surface. That's my key point, is that we've only scratched the surface of the Philadelphia Fusion, whereas teams like London and teams like NYXL are already pretty deep into that process of refinement.
Let's not, like, the problem is, like, they were able to go toe-to-toe when none of these teams expected to play them, because they didn't know who would show up in the playoffs, right?
Sure.
And then they had one day to prepare, or indeed like an hour or something, or 15 minutes indeed. Like NYXL might have thought that London, just try to win that, because if you like, these Korean teams are heavily preparation focused.
Yes.
Now, so we actually haven't seen these teams match against each other in high preparation matches, and indeed, if they meet each other in high preparation matches, they get 4-0 blown out. Like, okay, so to be fair, EQO was not in the first London series,
yes,
right? And you would probably say that was basically based on new playstyles taking place now in the series. And I do agree that they, for instance, now it seemed like Fraggy and that the Tracer was playing more together, which, one of the aspects that that we definitely see in Korean teams, which is nice. But the thing is, like, it's still Frag. It's like the tank line is still nowhere near close to either a Mano and a Meko or a Jesha and a Fury.
All right.
Like, this is incomprehensibly different.
And you know what they've got? Just sat there. The literal definition of potential, as in unwitnessed, but has the potential to be incredible. They have a replacement for Fraggy. They have Sado sat on the bench, who at some point, what is that? 4 weeks from now,
are you going to take the next gamble on a guy you've never seen where it worked? Like this is where people
1-0 Jonak.
Oh my god, dude! Like, you're actually going to take that gamble again after getting away with it the first time around? Like, super lucky. I don't know if you have seen scrims of Sado, and maybe he is. It's quite interesting. You probably have to expect wonders from a guy that was banned for 30 matches, and you still stick with him, right? So sure. I hope he's actually nuts, right?
And a guy as well, just to have a small tangent to talk about Sado, and a guy that was boosting people very consistently, like crazy consistently, who's on main tank, who's like boosting people up the ladder when all of the previous OWL players were there on main tank. Like that is actual like mad levels of skill, you know? Because I really think like boosting is one of the fairly clear definers that you have some kind of mechanical talent or understanding of the game, right? Because you're able to not just do it once on one account, but you're able to do it like consistently. And again, this is ladder, the same as we were saying about Jonak.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's also been there scrimming with the B team of the Philadelphia Fusion, and the fact that the Philadelphia Fusion has these two teams that scrim against each other, which I think will accelerate their growth and let them realize some of this potential, is another thing that I think you have to factor in that goes for them, whereas a lot of the other teams in the league that perhaps would have this room to grow don't have that opportunity or aren't making full use of it.
Yeah. The thing is, like, actually, for me, where the most potential comes from in Philadelphia Fusion is that they have a very, very solid structure, and they seem to have understood how to actually lead a team and how to, create systems that are reliable. And if someone acts out, yeah, you're bench kid, right? Like, I don't want to talk too much about it, but there have been like moves where it was definitely about, disciplining people. And then it worked, right? So, like, also the guys behind it, Kirby, BZ, and Hayes, like, they were definitely the smartest coaches, basically, in the Western scene, right? So, they could definitely, match up with the Korean coaches. Then again, we've never actually seen what the strategies of Korean coaches do to them in high-pressure situations. And this will... The thing is, I can't even say if we will find out what will happen in Stage 3, because I expect Stage 3 to be much more about DPS, and DPS was always the strongest suit for the Fusion. So not even this stage they are likely to get punished for their style, but depending on what Stage 4 looks like, and then definitely in the playoffs once teams actually get to prepare for these teams, will we see what the actual potential is? Because, like, one pound for pound, I still don't believe, like, okay, neither the tank or the...
Let's go into pound for pound then. If you want to... If we're going to talk about this, because individual skill, I think, is a big component of why the Philadelphia Fusion play so well. And I think it's a big component of why I personally believe they have a lot of potential. Because I think, at the moment, they've been relying on individual skill. And if that is, like, their baseline, and they can then push that up with a good system and good teamwork and good playstyle adaptations and being able to read their opponent in the same way as I think they did in the playoffs, if they can continue doing this, that's where the potential growth is for me. So my theory is that the individual skill puts them on an even level footing, or potentially even above a lot of the other teams that we would consider like the greats of the Overwatch League. So which team would you say has the best... Or actually, of the top three teams that you referenced there, as in the three Korean teams, which would you say has the least pound for pound skill? And we'll
of the Korean team, Seoul.
Ways up. Okay, so Seoul, I think you look at that team at the moment, like not relying on historical data of how they've like previously performed, but within the last few months, which I think is fair. We can't look back to when Miro was a god and just say that he will be a god again. I don't think that's reasonable. The only player that I would say is actually performing at a crazy level is Fletter, and who continues to perform at a crazy level. That guy is just, I agree. He's just a god, right? He's just absolutely possibly. I haven't been really sold on. I mean, I was one of the biggest advocates of Toby. Really thought he was a very intelligent player. Still is very intelligent, but I think that he's been playing a little more passive recently. Doesn't seem to be going for these aggressive flanks to try and shut people down. Puts Jaehong in a weird position. I think that really, when we look pound for pound and you bring up Toby, you got a point at Neptuno. Like, that guy has been having great performances on Mercy, has been having great performances on Lucio. Yes, he's very aggressive and goes in with the dive a lot of the times, but he's also there to protect Boombox a huge amount of the time. He's getting the resurrects when needed when he plays the Mercy, learning a lot, because when he started the season wasn't that great, and is now absolutely has to be considered one of the best, I suppose now you would call it the flex support, because the other one is always playing Zen.
See, we can capture this short because Seoul is not the hill I want to die on.
Sure,
but
pick your hill.
Like,
die on a hill, Yiska.
NYXL and London at most have a or two players that are even debatable are worse than the equivalent on Fusion. So for London, definitely the tank line is outright better than what Fusion has currently. Because I'm not willing to bet on what Sado could do.
Sure,
like tank line just. Sure. In general, it's just better. Like the way Fury pillaged Poco in that final, he basically, like, Poco was writing his autobiography, and Fury's like,
actually,
grammatical error.
Actually, though, of the first two maps, Fury dropped the ball super hard, because when you look at how the first two maps went down, Gesture was like going in and making the right plays and being with Prophet, and they kind of baited him forward, and Fury just wasn't there at the right times. Like, I'm looking at where Fury is. Like, if he's trying to put the defense matrix on Gesture a lot of the time, and Gesture's just getting shredded. I think that's like Fury's responsibility to go for that. But I agree.
Were y'all playing the first one?
No, it was Fury for the first two. But I think actually, weirdly as well, that Wuqiao has become the better diva of the two.
I agree now.
Towards the end of the stage, which is, you know, there's twists and turns all over the place with the London Spitfire. But I would give you that the tank line is pound for pound stronger.
Gesture might just be the best player in the league right now. Like, he's absolutely not. So tank line. Then if we're thinking of support line, I'm willing to give you that Neptuno is a better player than us.
Yes, I think Neptuno is a better player than us, or in fact Closer. Like, Closer had good performances previously, hasn't really been playing too much, so I don't know really what we can draw from that. I would also say that Boombox in the playoffs, particularly when his team wasn't getting bodied, right? When he's playing against top opposition and he's not just getting repeatedly fucked because of the mistakes of his team, then he was having a monster performance in the playoffs. Like, he was
but we can't limit that to one match. Sure, like, but over the season so far, Bedosten has been far and away better than Boombox and close to Jonak, right? So, like, when I don't see Jonak level performances from Boombox whatsoever. Like, I have a hard time saying that he's even the top five.
No, I think I would definitely put Boombox up there. I think that while Jonak and Bedoshin are excellent players, a lot of that has been because the rest of their team is really good at being able to give them enough space to play with, or a system within which to work, like Jonak. But you got to say that Boombox gets almost the least help out of any of the Zenyatas in the entire league. Like, this guy is playing on a team where prior to the very end of stage 2, this team was playing like a 4-man heavy dive style, where even Poco was going in on the dive, and sometimes fucking Neptuno's running off from him, getting kills as Lucio. Like, this guy is working with some of the least resources in the league, and then when they switch it around, and
that's also exactly the matches where he gets ramped on.
Sure, yeah, because how are you supposed to, like, if you get
I'm not saying like
out on your own. So I'm saying that there's some kind of
just a target dummy then. Yeah, like, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's basically the Jaehong issue.
But
right?
when they support him, I think that he's able to put up like at least top 5 performances. So, like, yeah, he's just on the, but he's the tier beneath Bedoshin and Jonak for me. He's like on the same level as somebody like Neko. I would put him
Yeah.
up there in the same kind of second tier. So, all right, the support line is kind of even then. The tank line's below. But it's the DPS portion where I've got to say that when you look at how Carpe, Snillo as well, weirdly, and EQO, the weirdest of all, these three guys have actually... If we, for a moment, ignore the name value and the apex performances of guys like Prophet and Birdring, who we know like have in the past reached these god tier levels of performance, I would say it's actually been Carpe, EQO, and Snillo who've been eating these guys for fucking breakfast in terms of performances across the league.
In that series, definitely. Prophet had one of the worst series of his career.
Yes, Prophet had a poor series there. But overall, have you seen ridiculous carry performances from Prophet or even Birdring outside of like the stage finals? I think they're few and far between, whereas Carpe and EQO, it's fairly, apart from the series where they got blown out by London, where that was just like massive team failures across the board and everyone looked shocking.
Also, Shadow Worm was just not good. Like,
sure, and Shadowburn's somebody that they're... But when you have three players who, between the three of them, can form different systems that are just insanely powerful, like the EQO and Carpe duo, ridiculous. The Snillo and Carpe duo when Carpe's on Widowmaker, like these are ridiculous duos that I think actually edge out the London teams pound for pound in terms of their performance over the course of the Overwatch League, particularly in Stage 2.
How would you compare them to NYXL?
So I would say NYXL have the teamwork to be able to set everybody up in a really nice system for their backline, and to some extent their tanks. Like I think their tanks work well within the system. Their DPS have stepped up because Libero previously we didn't think of him as like this big game performer. He's actually having some really good, really consistent performances.
Yeah.
But again, some of the things that the Philadelphia Fusion DPS are doing is nuts. And it's like, Sabiobi is, I think I would still say the best tracer in the league, but the high points of where Carpe and actually Snillo as well can get to are unbelievable and more of a carry performance than a role-playing performance for NYXL, whereas Sabiobi normally has that role-playing, and the team looks a little bit more uncomfortable when he's making these more aggressive plays, although he's certainly perfectly capable and has the skill to be able to do it. But I think pound for pound in the DPS portion, they edge out NYXL as well, because like when, for example, let's say that you're playing Widowmaker Tracer. Right?
Keep in mind, Pine is still in that mix.
Is he?
If that kid
Where
actually,
the fuck is he?
He's back now. But like, if we're actually talking about a situation where all stars align and Carpe like pops off,
wait,
and then
this isn't stars aligning though. This is superstars putting on fairly regular performances. Like Carpe has been really consistent with this.
As in carry performances, definitely not more than, for instance, Pine was in Stage 1.
But Pine in Stage 1 is this carry player, right? He plays kind of a similar kind of style, and where the entire team plays around him. And it's very much feast or famine with Pine. Like, the amount of times where he's straight thrown a fight or a round as well, you could count them. Like, they're right there in front of you. They are, in fact, fairly obvious. The amount of times Carpe has lost a game for them, I don't think it's been one. Like, this guy doesn't have a feast or famine approach. He has a feast or enough is as good as a feast kind of approach. It's like you either get a consistently good performance from him when the entire team isn't being run the fuck over because they have a terrible game plan, or he's like having insane performances. Like the DPS portion for the Philadelphia Fusion is fucking legit.
So if we're talking about potential, what do you mean exactly? Do you mean they can, on a good day, beat every team, or do you say they can consistently beat out the best teams in the league and possibly win playoffs?
Well, I think that arguing that on a good day they could beat every team would be a very easy argument, because the playoffs was a good day and they very easily could have beaten every team. They certainly
wasn't a good day for NYXL though.
Sure, but when we say on a good day, we don't mean on the most perfectly balanced day in the world. We mean on a good day for that team, right?
Okay.
So, and also, it was a poor day for Philadelphia Fusion as well. They've just played a grueling game, a 5-map series against London Spitfire of a 10-minute break, and then they have to go on and face the NYXL.
Didn't seem to stop London first time around, mate.
Okay, fair enough. But they also... am I remembering that right? Did they have to reverse sweep as well? Yeah. So yeah, London reverse swept the stage 1 finals, right?
Yes.
Yes. Whereas in this case, I think it was more obvious that the fatigue hit the Philadelphia Fusion. Like, they were playing really phenomenally for the first 2 maps, and then when they lost on Volskaya, which is just like a trash map for them, the whole wind went out of their sails. So I think that's...
I agree.
It's like the potential is absolutely there, and it's a process of working on... different strategies and playstyles, a process of preparing specifically for opponents, and it's a process of working on kind of having a good mentality. Because, again, when they played against fucking Shanghai, they came back and they're like laughing at halftime when they're 2-0 up and nearly get reverse swept by the team that nobody else has ever lost to. Like, there are the problems with Philadelphia Fusion at the moment that are stopping them reaching their potential of being this... at least the second best team in the league and on the same level as the NYXL are all strategic. I don't think, again, with the caveat that you have to put a system in place where Fraggy can excel, because Fraggy at the moment is the weak link on the team, and if you make systems like they were running in the playoffs that help Fraggy excel, then you're going to have success with this team. And you know, whether that's like him diving really deep so that he's facilitating the DPS, or whether he's putting himself in a bait position so that the rest of the team is like, they're just fucking ringing him out on a hook and they're like, come on, come and get the fucking Winston on 20 HP. And then they kill all of the rest of the players like they were doing on like Hanamura. This system will push Philadelphia Fusion further than they are right now. And the key to me, the reason that I say they have the most potential is they are going to accelerate. If they get this right, they're going to accelerate faster than the teams that are above them. Because the teams that are above them are already kind of on this trajectory. The NYXL can't continue to accelerate faster than Philadelphia can, because NYXL have already nailed a lot of the fundamentals of their teamwork, and they're playing at a really good individual level. Like, the Philadelphia Fusion are playing at a really good individual level, have just started getting the teamwork, and they're already, like, fucking breathing down their necks.
Only because there was no specific preparation. I wager now these teams don't take them for granted and will actually counter-strat them efficiently, because, like, London had the most telegraphed anti-struts you've ever seen. It's like, oh, there's a weak tank line against Dallas. Let's play frontline bust. Okay, they're playing against Fusion. There's a bad tank line. Let's play the exact same thing. Oh, no, they play the exact counter to us. How could we... Like, the exact opposite to what they used to do, where they were preparing in a very secretive manner, and then came out, and only for that reason also were able to win the stage finals, because they somehow had an ace up their sleeve. But like,
here's, just to take a short tangent, if you don't mind, I'd like to just focus on the London Spitfire for a moment, because if I'm positing that the Philadelphia Fusion are going to become at least the second best team, because I personally think that NYXL are like really, really good and will continue to improve, and it'll be difficult for Philadelphia to catch them. But the difference is what I'm talking about, the potential difference. So for London Spitfire, have you seen that kind of strategic dismantling of another team in stage 2, where they secretly prepare and then they go in and they dismantle them, apart from when they played against the Philadelphia Fusion? Like, what I've seen from the London Spitfire is that I thought that was what was going to happen, and we saw kind of hints of it throughout the stage 1 and maybe one example in stage 2. But apart from that, it just seems like they don't prepare properly. Like, this is my end takeaway from the London Spitfire, is that it's not like they're getting the pieces together like Philadelphia Fusion are. It's like they had an idea and now they're just kind of drifting all over the place, and it doesn't look like they are going to improve. It doesn't look like they're going to rapidly improve their teamwork and their counter-stratting and this kind of stuff. I don't think they have the potential at the moment to extend the gap and become the best team like they said they would at the end of stage 1.
I think they definitely have the potential. I actually think they have the most potential of any team in the league, even including NYXL. Just pound for pound, they're the most impressive team. They now have stocked up once again. Obviously, we don't know what's his name, Animo?
Yes,
Animo for NYXL. No idea what that looks like, but I'm not willing to bet against their talent scouting. That database is way too strong.
Like, he's seen it in the crystal balls.
I think London, if they actually get their stuff together and even might maybe incorporate closer a little bit more, because I don't know if giving up so much mechanical prowess for shot calling is actually doing them a lot of any favors, especially if the shot calling is not the reason why they're winning. But the reason they lost against the Fusion was that the Fusion played a style that was like incomprehensible to and it was random as hell. Like it's like even against NYXL, oh no, we conceded first pick. Let's pull back slightly. Like for instance, go back, watch Route 66. That's insane. That's counter Overwatch what Fusion is playing there. It's like, oh no, we've conceded first pick. Oh, we got out. Oh, we didn't give them ult shots. And now we're turning back 5v6, we're somehow winning. Because nobody's in a position to punish them, because they're like, okay, now we set up on top because that's where they're respawning from. And Prophet's like, I was outplayed by the drunken boxer. Like this is ridiculous. Like I don't know. Like that's basically how you beat Prophet for the most part. Now, if they can prepare and do have some sample size as to compare it to, and I mean, the problem really for London is that they don't get first in the season. If they actually had time to look at the team and prepare for them, I think that is just straight up the strong. I think their preparation is actually better than for the other teams. And for the most part, once again, yes, the pet. I think we've sort of been robbed of a great series in the final against NYXL. That would have been some Vegeta against Goku shit, right? Like, I think that this would have been a nuts level of Overwatch, and also
I also thought that for a moment, like after I'd watched the final, I was like, that was an incredible series. Like, that was just insane. Like, the whole storyline of Philadelphia making this ridiculous run, and the reverse sweep for NYXL, and the fact that for 3 maps we didn't know whether it would be Philadelphia taking it in a ridiculous win, or we didn't know whether it would be NYXL finally getting a win that they hadn't done for like 15 months back to IEM Kiangi, or at least the core of the team. So I thought, that was everything you would want from a final. That was spectacular. But the one thing we did miss out on was the London NYXL rivalry. But also, I have a feeling that NYXL would have just bodied that. Because when we talk about the NYXL and London situation and how they're going up against each other, I'm starting to have much more faith in NYXL's level of preparation and how their counter-strategy teams are being able to
why are they playing so close and London is running them over?
Okay,
is that just
why are London fucking losing to the LA Gladiators and losing a map to the San Francisco Shock?
Because they're playing that Triple H bullshit. Like, let's keep everyone in the team happy. Oh, let's let them lose just some games for free, and then bring the team in. That was simply the same, except same pattern as it was in stage 1 against Houston or whatever. Like,
but NYXL are certainly, like, outside of the deliberate sandbagging argument, it's very difficult to say that NYXL are not just hands down the most consistent team in the league. They prepare for everybody. They prepare for everybody, and they have the ability to.
They have a higher base level of play. Their fundamentals are just more sound. But if London gets to prepare against someone and they get to intune themselves with the playstyle, I just think they just dismantle them. Like, I don't think the stage 1 finals are at all close if they play on the second day of the final. It's just like full focus, full first the premier strats they have, defaults and whatever, and I think they just bully them out of the game. I'm pretty sure that, like, it's hard to prove and to disprove, but I think it's at the latest in the playoffs, which are it's like a month out after the season concludes that we see the playoffs. If we see the brackets, I think the first opponent is they're just screwed. Like, if you have London as your first opponent in the bracket, they can prepare a month for you. They're revolutionizing Overwatch in that time.
Okay.
Nothing will ever be the same for you.
Okay. And then they'll get knocked out in the quarterfinals or the semifinals because they don't have enough time.
It depends how long time frame they can't
utilize the quote crazy skill that they have, crazy individual pound for pound skill. The thing is, like, if they have the like monumental. You need both individual skill and fundamentals to be able to have a base level, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, you have to be able to have that to have the base level, and then you build strategy and planning and stuff on top of that. And that's what, like, NYXL are already in the stage where they have their individual level of skill. Everyone's performing really well. There is nobody that's losing them games or is a clear weak link or anything like this. Mm-hmm. Then they add on top of that the fact that they have the fundamentals down. They've been playing with each other for a huge amount of time. They don't have to swap and change people all the time. They just have like a strong core that works together all the time. Their supports are always in. Their DPS are pretty much.
That's the biggest part for me.
Sure, and that allows them to then add like sandwich another layer of strategy on top of that. For me, London are missing the fundamentals component right now. They are like, they have the individual level of skill, but they don't have the fundamentals. And by fundamentals, I mean like the individual way in which like multiple people are working together. Not the entire team, but like the apart from Gesture and Profit, the how is the Diva interacting with the front line and the back line? How are the two backline players interacting with each other? Do they push up and use ultimates at the right time? Like how are they assessing fights? Are they going for things at the right time? This level is missing for me and is required before you sandwich the top level on top, which is why I don't think they're going to be able to realize that potential. And if you have potential that you kind of suspect is not going to get realized, is it even potential at all? Like if it's got a hole in the middle of your little house of cards, if you've got one that some mouse is just nibbling away at in the middle, and you can't get rid of the mouse, like, you know, the house of cards is going to fall eventually. Whereas with Philadelphia Fusion, I think that they have that insane level of individual talent. They also have the fundamentals down, and now they're starting to add the strategy on top. And this is where I see them just like building upwards and actually being able to realize the potential that they have.
Let's just quickly wrap this up because I know you need to go. But it's like, what's the litmus test? What do you think needs to happen in order for your theory to be proved?
Sure. So they're going up against the Boston Uprising. I've just pulled it up. They're up against the Boston Uprising, the Florida Mayhem, the Houston Outlaws, and then the London Spitfire. So I would say that what needs to happen for the Philadelphia Fusion to realize their potential and actually fulfill this idea of being able to accelerate faster than the other teams around them is that they need to continue to diversify the play style. Now, I don't mean the compositions that they play. I don't want to see them like pulling out some like random fucking weird shit. Although we are going into the Sombra meta, so it's natural that teams are going to have to mess around with what compositions they use.
Yes.
But for people watching, I mean the play styles that they use. As in, when I watch the team basically throughout the whole of the rest of stage 1 and stage 2, they were a team where like Poco's going in on a lot of the dives, trying to support Fraggy. Fraggy's going super deep, making a lot of room. They're trying to buy room for their flankers to come in. They're coming in from like opposite sides, and they pick a target and they focus him down and they wipe him. And the two supports are like miles away, or sometimes Neptuno's in and Boombox is miles away. Like, this was the style of the Philadelphia Fusion, and we brought it up tons of times on the desk where they only really play like they play their tune and other people have to adapt to it. And some of them did, and they shit on them. And what we saw in the playoffs is that they have now built up a huge range of styles. And it's kind of like a little bit of inside info as well, because we get to speak to the coaches. And so I know to some extent that this is, you know, an active process rather than just something random that happened in the finals. But I think that that was a reasonable conclusion as well, because we saw like them playing a totally different style that works better with the pieces that they have. They were adapting to an opponent that shut them down really hard last time. So what I want to see going forwards is them continue to diversify their playstyle based on the opponent that they face. So if they are playing against a passive team, sure, fucking go back to that like mega dive that you had before and just rinse the Dallas Fuel or the Shock. I mean, Shock probably not going to play like that anymore, but you know what I mean. The Houston Outlaws.
Yeah.
Oh, and then if you're playing against NYXL, tailor your strategy to maybe take advantage of the fact that they don't run Pine in some of the series, so they have to swatch, use Libero on Widowmaker, who's perhaps, although actually he has been performing really well, but is perhaps slightly weaker than some of the other top Widows, or you know, I want to see them utilize this strategic element and to outplay their opponents without losing the fundamentals. That's what would have to happen for their potential to be realized, in my opinion. It's all down to their coaching staff.
Yeah, I remain. You guys have been mesmerized by Chef Heidi's cooking and the very fashionable camel pants that you guys wear.
That's true.
And the loads of interactions. I call personal bias, but we will see. It's a nice litmus test. So let's see. Let's Twitter battle once the London Fusion series happens.
Yes.
I
now
think
that will be a great one as well, because that's in week 2. It's fairly early on. I mean, maybe it would be better.
I'm even willing to give the entirety of the season, to be honest. Like, because the argument is that potential will eventually be realized. then they probably would have a chance to win it all.
But the thing
right?
is, it's not something where you'd have to wait until the end of the season, and we just won't know until it happens. Like, you should, if my argument is correct, we should be able to see this progression as it goes, because they're at the beginning building blocks. So I think if they take a lot of time and they just seem to be at the same level, it's already a pretty good idea that I was wrong and that they aren't able to realize this potential. But I'm expecting, granted, the fucking new patch is going to set things, it's going to like reduce things a level, because you start building up all of these fundamentals and ways of playing the game, and then it's like, poof, new patch, you have to kind of rebuild some of the things. So granted, there might be a couple of weeks of like getting into the groove of it and figuring out their playstyle, and some of the teams may adapt to the patch better than them, but in the long term, I do expect them to be better. But as you say, we'll have to see. And so if you agree, I often forget to put this at the end, but if you agree with Yiska's statement, give me a thumbs down, because on the video, because then I can tell which way the public opinion goes. See, it doesn't quite work though, and it's actually kind of biased towards me again, Yiska, because if people like the content, they tend to thumbs up it anyway. So yeah, I'll just use that. You know, if you,
I will never understand someone that gives a video a thumbs up before he sees the end of the video. Like, how do you like? There could literally be kittens be petted the wrong against the strain, which is just rude.
We could just be spewing white supremacist bullshit at the end. Like, the first half is just all about this. The second half is just crazy racism. Like, they would never know because they thumbed up it at the beginning. So there's your lesson.
Exactly.
There's your lesson. And with that, I bid you adieu.